Welcome to Pure Fuckery, the podcast. I am your host. It's your favorite Dr. Bae, Monique Ross. In today's episode, I have my homegirl here. This is the homegirl, Tamiel. Welcome to Pure Fuckery, the podcast. Say what's up to the fuckers.
Everyone. How's it going?
So, this is my homegirl, Tamiel. I've known her for years, and she had made a status on Facebook the other day, and I reached out to her because I was actually looking for someone locally that would be open and willing to have a conversation with me about domestic violence. October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I really wanted to have a conversation with someone who would be open and transparent to sit down and have a conversation with me. I had a couple people that were not local willing to have a conversation, but you know, I wanted somebody local because y'all know me, I like to bring people into my energy space and, you know, have that conversation in person. So I reached out to the homegirl, Tamiel, and she's like, she down. So I'm like, let's go. Let's do it. So we set it up. Here we are today. So like I said, we're talking domestic violence. Me, myself, I've never been in a situation with a man that I was dealing with where it was abusive, you know, physically. I've had men try to, you know, be manipulative, narcissistic behavior where they try to, you know, mentally, verbally abuse me, but never physically. But I've said this multiple times on several episodes that I grew up in an abusive household. So my household I grew up in, you know, and there's no shade to my pops. I love my pops to death. We still are close to this day, but I absolutely grew up in an abusive household where my mom was physically abused on a regular basis, and it was known in our neighborhood. There were instances where, like, I remember as a child where, like, he beat the hell out of my mom and she run out the house, you know, go to the neighbor's house. Like, the neighbors in our neighborhood knew. My family, my aunts and uncles, they knew. And I never understood, like, why nobody intervened or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, I guess as an adult now, I understand, like, why family didn't get involved, because she wasn't going to leave. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. She was going to stay. So why would my uncles and aunts or whoever step up and intervene in the situation knowing she wasn't going to leave? And I do remember one instance where I can recall my aunt, who's deceased, my mom's youngest sister, where she was the only one, like, I can recall ever getting in the middle of it, breaking it up, saying something, you know, clowning on him or whatever. But I just never understood that, and I used to harbor anger and, I won't say hate, but I used to just harbor, like, animosity towards my mom for allowing it. You know what I'm saying? Because I would look at her like, why do you accept this? Why do you allow this? And I've told you guys this once before, where I asked my mom, like, how do you still love him? How can you love a man who does these things to you? And she say, baby girl, until you truly have love, you don't know what you're willing to endure for a man. And I didn't know that. You know, and as I've grown older, yes, I truly understand, because I've dealt with shit in my personal life where I should have walked away, but I put up with it in the name of love. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But physically, no, I think because I'm such an alpha female and I come off so strong, but, you know, that's how I come off. But in reality, you know, I'm soft, I'm timid. We all have our insecurities about ourselves, but when as far as dealing with a man, I think because of the household that I grew up in, watching my mom be physically abused, that's why I come off tough and like, don't fuck with me. You know what I'm saying? So that's just a little rundown of me and my experience with domestic violence. I'm gonna turn it over to my homegirl Tamiel, since she offered her time and, you know, rearranged some things in her schedule to come and grace Pure Fuckery with Pure Fuckery the podcast with her presence. So tell us about, you know, your experience. You were transparent on Facebook about, you know, what you had experienced, so share with the fuckers, you know, because your story, you know, us having this conversation is definitely going to help somebody in, you know, just hearing it, you know, just speaking on it. So I'm gonna turn the table over to Miss Tamiel here and let her share in her experience.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And I just told Mo that she's the very first person that I've shared, or I will be sharing, like, more of my story, because I kind of touched on things on Facebook, but I didn't really tell. Not even my mother knows. So
wow.
This is something that I've hidden.
This is an exclusive, fuckers. We always
yeah.
get the exclusive here on Pure Fuckery, the podcast.
Definitely,
that's what's up. That's dope. I appreciate you for that. I absolutely appreciate you for that.
Yes. I really just started talking about it because as a lot of people know or don't know, that it actually was my child's father. So I didn't want to put like a bad stigma, I guess, on him. In a way, I still wanted to protect him no matter how horrible of a person he was to me. I wanted to protect him just off the strength that he's my child's father, first of all.
Right.
And then, like you said, a lot of times when you're in those situations, out of love, you want to stay. It might be just a smack the first time or a hit, and you like, oh, okay, you don't really think you're in an abusive relationship. You just think, oh, okay, he just maybe smacked me because I said something that I should not have, or I said, you know, I was too loud that time.
Right.
But it's like a repetitive thing, and it gets bigger and it increases and it gets worse. And so, by me not really being raised in an abusive household, my father was a minister, my mother sang in the church, so it was like I was brought up in church. Right. Of course, you get grown, walk away from church and all that good stuff. So that's pretty much where I was in life. I had been married, messed it up, so I guess I was at a point as to where people saw me go through relationships, saw me go through a lot of stuff, and I didn't want this to be another relationship fail. Or people be like, see, she always see people that this. So I hid a whole bunch of stuff about this particular relationship. I guess I was really in a relationship with him maybe 4 years. I got out when my daughter was 3. Okay. So it was definitely before she was old enough to really know what was going on. But it started like actually when I was pregnant. Before I got pregnant, it seemed to be everything was great. You have like little signs where you like, okay, something ain't right here.
Something not right here.
It's not gonna work. Right. Of course you have those signs, but it didn't really actually start till I was pregnant. And I do have to say that I believe substance abuse probably contributed to the way that this individual reacted. So a lot of times it would be because he either went out, drank a lot, did whatever he had to do. He was battling a bunch of demons. Right. So doing that and then coming home, it might not have necessarily been something that I did or said at that time.
And
so
it's usually
that's
not.
when I realized,
it's usually not. And that's something we have to understand, that person's behavior, another person's behavior, it has absolutely nothing to do with you. That's some personal shit that they're dealing with within them, the demons that they're battling. And we have to understand that and, be wise enough to recognize those instances in that situation. Yes. But continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine, 'cause that was good. And I think knowing that, and then me not coming from an abusive relationship, coming from a family where we were all loved and we're close, and I didn't see men beat their women. Right. So it was kind of like, oh, he's going through this, or oh, he's battling this. Well, let me see if I can make it better. But once we realize that we are not responsible for somebody else's happiness, that's not gonna happen. Exactly. And that's something that I did have to learn, even at 30-some years old.
Yes, that's an inside job.
You learn it's no age to it, okay? It's old women probably going through the same thing. But I started when I was pregnant. So, of course, I'm pregnant with this baby. I'm not trying to think about leaving this person at this time.
Right.
I'm in love, and we're having a baby.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
He might have just smacked me the first time. Right. And then I'm like, okay, that's just what it was. Because now what my mama did do, she talked, okay? Right. So I got that naturally. So, my words are what I fought with. So I was always good at that. I was great at arguing. So that, because he would just get so frustrated that he would just rather haul off and hit me. So that's kind of sort of how it started. And then the moment that I guess it started changing for me was probably a little bit after I had my daughter. He came into the hospital because my daughter had to be in the NICU, and I think a lot of that had to do with stress over the whole relationship. Right. But she had to be in the NICU for 2 weeks, and he would come stay the night with us because I was like, I'm not leaving my baby. Right. But he would come and stay the night with us. And me having these women intuition, I'm going through the phone. Right. Where he walked out.
And we had time
and found out some great stuff wasn't happening in the phone. got into it. I mean, we like all out and were brawling in like Mercy parking lot. So it's like, that was my turning point. It was like 3 days after I had my baby. So I'm like, if you don't care enough that the fact that I just laid down, had your child, and I'm only 3 days out, you know,
and the baby's in the hospital.
And yes, security coming down. I'm like, I'm embarrassed. I'm looking like, I cannot believe this is happening. I'm like, calling his mama. Like, that's the first time I had even shared with his mom about the physical things. And I'm calling her like, please get your son and get him. Because I don't even know how it went from 0 to 60, but it did. And I also had to realize that it doesn't matter what a woman do, you don't deserve to get hit.
Exactly.
Even for a guy, because it's a lot of times guys are not brought up in households where they see, you know, their father abusing their mother or whatever, and they're not used to women hitting them, so they're not gonna fight back.
Right.
So a guy can be abused, but it does not necessarily mean that, you know, they're weak or whatever.
Right.
So you have to realize or recognize those things, like that it just doesn't make it right because you feel like that person is going through something or they need a little extra love or something. Just walk away because they're not going to stop.
Right.
So that's something that I did have to recognize over time. It took a while, but I did. I think after that moment at the hospital, it kind of was when I was starting to mentally, you know, recognize I'm in a straight abusive relationship.
Right.
And it's like, I seen like cousins of mine and like different friends have relationships like that. And I'm like, oh, that's so stupid. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It's never, I'm never going to do that.
Yeah,
it's never
like,
gonna
how
be
can
me.
you do that?
Yes.
Never in a million years would I have thought I would have been in that particular situation.
Right.
And I just think about all the times where it could have went worse, because even after I had my child, and we were still living in the same household, it was been instances where I had my child in my arms and we're fighting. And like you said, your mama will run out the door. I'm running out the door in the middle of the street. It's like, this is not me. This is not how I was brought up. You know, I had to get it out. And I feel like the only way that I truly was able to get it out was just my faith and my belief in God. Because I don't think, if I didn't really pray about that situation, I don't think it would have been out for me. Only because I knew how crazy he was. He always like, I ain't going nowhere. You ain't gonna go nowhere. Okay. You gonna go somewhere. So eventually, it, you know, like you said, you just get enough. And I became numb to it. And it was like, I felt like I had to get out because either I was gonna get hurt or my daughter was gonna get hurt. And when a person don't care that you have your child in your arms, that's bad as well. And like I said, just because you have a child with that person, that does not mean that you have to stay. Because a lot of women do think that. Right. And I've heard a lot of women say that, and they're willing to go through that.
That was my mom.
For stability. That was my mom. And, you know, he's paying the bills, and, you know, they sometimes have you in that position where you feel like, okay, I may as well stay because I cannot live without this person.
He's your security.
Exactly.
He's
like
the provider of the house. And my mom, that was my mom the same way. Like, I remember I'm the oldest girl, so I saw more than my younger sisters. My brother saw more than all of us, but me being the oldest girl, I had that bond and connection with her where she would talk to me about certain things and like just different stories as I got older that she shared with me. Like, she would tell me like, yo, daddy beat me when you were in my arms. You were a few days old and he beat her up, you know, outside, and the neighbors saw, you know, stuff like that. And like, I just was always like, I would look at my mom like, why would you stay? And she always say, I stayed for the kids. I stayed because I wanted all y'all to have a dad in the house. I wanted y'all to be raised by y'all dad in the same household. And I understand it, but in hindsight, it's just certain stuff you don't tolerate, certain things you don't deal with, you don't allow, out of self-respect for yourself. You know what I'm saying? So for me, that's what I guess, like I said, that's why I'm so, you know, I give off this perception of that I'm tough and like, don't fuck with me. But, and I've had people try me. I've had people try me. Like my ex-husband, like, it wasn't domestic violence, but I was popping off to him one day. He shook the shit out of me one day. My young ex, one day he was on some dumb shit, opening and closing the doors, going from the front of the house to the back of the house one day, pissing me off. And before I knew it, I smacked the piss out of him. And I was like, Like, I couldn't believe I did that, and he couldn't believe I did it either. I'm calling my mama. He's Gary, call his mama on me. I'm like, do not call your mama. I didn't mean it. And like, in that moment, I was like, I'll never put my hands on another man again. You know what I'm saying? And then, like, most recently, the old man I was dating, that I was telling you about earlier, and y'all know I've talked about the old man on multiple occasions. The turning point of that particular relationship was one night we were getting ready to go get food, and he spazzing out. First, it started with a verbal, I guess, some verbal language that he used towards me that I didn't appreciate. So I checked him via the phone before I got there, and when I got there, I wanted to have further discuss it. He didn't want to discuss it, so he gets pissed at me. We're driving, he hops out the car. Like, I'm driving down the street, he hops out the car, and I grabbed his shirt. This man swears that I punched him. And I did not punch him. And he's like, you punched me in my back. And like, that's when everything like completely went downhill, because his reaction to me grabbing his shirt, trying to pull him back in the car as people were about to drive, like flying down the street, about to knock him in the door off.
I'm quite jump out. Actually, I would jump out of a moving car. Let me out of here. Yes, it'll be my car. You'll be driving my car. Let me out.
Oh wow!
Right
See,
now, I'm cleaning up
that
the jump out.
First time I ever
It's like my first instinct. I don't know why, but I be that bad. I gotta get out. Because it's not gonna end with.
Oh my
I am.
But yeah, like,
I'm guilty.
Those are just, like I said, like with my mom, just watching her endure, and my sisters and I both, well, the three of us, the three girls, we have conversations about it. And like my youngest sister, she didn't really experience a whole lot. So when we get off into the conversation, my siblings and I, she'll defend my dad, and she's closest to him, and she defends him. I don't defend him. I understand that as a man who had his own traumas, that's how he saw love in his household growing up. So as a man, that's how he ran his own household. Exactly. And then dealing with the insecurities that he was dealing with, where he lacked, I guess it made him feel more of a man to be able to dominate his household. And I'm talking like from the mom to the kids, because he dominated us too. Like, we got our asses beat. And I know growing up in the 80s, 70s, 80s, everybody got their asses beat. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like we got our asses beat worse. But now that I'm an adult and I have these adult conversations with friends and stuff, and the stuff that they got their asses beat with, like, we weren't the only ones getting whoopings with extension cords and, this and that and the other. So now I get it. I understand that. But like I said, him growing up in the circumstances that he grew up in, because I found out later in life that, like, my grandpa beat the shit out of my grandma. So, what else was he going to do? Right. But grow up and be a man that beats his wife. And the thing is, as a woman, you got to put your foot down. I remember having a conversation with one of my mom's sisters, who she's closest to. Shout out to my Aunt Carolyn. That's my heart. But I remember having a conversation, and she's like, her husband tried. She's like, he tried it one time. And I think she hit him with a skillet or something, and he never once put his hands on her again. Like, you have to set the fucking tone and let them know, like, you're not gonna put your hands on me. This not what we doing. But if you accept it the first time, they think it's okay to continue to do it. You know what I'm saying?
And then it's kind of where sometimes it becomes toxic on both ends, because I found myself trying to and it's not funny, but it's funny when I think about it. I found myself trying to get back in little ways too, like morning afters, and I would be like looking at him like, how can you just sit here and sleep so peacefully after just, basically choking the mess out of me last night? You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, I would do little things like throw hot water on him.
Oh, really?
So, wow. Really?
So you wasn't all that innocent, but look.
But it was only that one time I threw the hot water, and it was only because what he had did to me the night before, and I had my baby with me, and that was another thing. She had ended up with a scratch on her face, so that really messed me up too. Yeah. So that I felt like that deserved hot water that day, and when I did, I ran out the door, got him on my house, and I don't think I went home that whole weekend.
Wow.
I'm like, he was really gonna kill me, but I
wow. And look, I just said something. I said you weren't that innocent. Yeah, we all have our toxic traits, you know.
Yes.
And you feeding the fire, just, you know, that's just going to add to the flame. But at the end of the day, like you said, it shouldn't have went down in the first place, because nobody deserves it. Like, you don't have a right as my partner, as a man, the man in my life. Like, you don't have the right to put your hands on me.
Exactly.
You know?
Not at all. Under no circumstances should you put your hands on me.
At all. And we, you know, some women accept it. Some women, you know, they feed into the toxicity of the relationship and dump hot water on them. You know what I'm saying? Some women fight back. And I have a friend, or a former friend, should I say, who, like, that was their relationship. Like, they would get down, feed off of the shit, and fight each other, and then they in love. A few hours later, they back in love, and then the next time it happens, they out having a whole brawl, and she was like, she banging with him, like she was straight going toe to toe with this man. I'm like, girl, you crazy? Like, why are you sitting up fighting this man? But hey,
I would defend myself now. I wasn't the only one who walked away with scratches. Let me say, I was not like just an innocent, but I was never the aggressor. That's never been me. I'm always like the love, let me hug you and let me kiss on you and just bring you close. You know, I was always the let me help you, let me rescue you. And I read something on Facebook, and I think I shared it, that said, you know, some people really don't love you for real. They just need you and know that you're a really good person. Right. And I think that that's what our relationship really turned into. Like, he wooed me, you know, and people used to be like, well, you ain't know he was this way. You know, you stayed with him 3-4 years, and you ain't know he was this. Of course, like, the first 6 to 7 months to a year, that person is lovely. You know, some people are great at hiding the fact that they're abusive. You know, he wooed me and all that great stuff, but it's just something that progressed into, and it's definitely not healthy. And again, I didn't want my daughter growing up, although she's crazy about her daddy, and I want her to be, you know, naturally, because I think all girls, all kids, period, need their dad. Absolutely. I knew me staying, it could have progressed into maybe me going too far, hurting him, or vice versa, him hurting me or killing me. And sometimes you don't mean it to turn into that, but it just does. Accidents can happen, right? And I'm like, before that happened, let me just get out. And I did. And the crazy part is, this man fought me to my church. Oh, wow. Like, everything. It's like, he wants to know if I'm really going. I don't know really what the points of it was. I'm like, he could have been going for himself. Well, why my church? But that's how I felt at the time. And even that in itself was toxic. It's like, I'm trying to go, but you trying to make sure that I see you. Like, it's to the point where I have a restraining order against this individual, because it was that type of, that psychotic mentality that I just couldn't deal with. But I mean, it's mellow now, but it's just something that I refuse to deal with. And even now, I'm still praying, because even when you get free from those particular situations, you still don't feel safe. Right. You still don't feel like trusting anybody else. You still looking around corners. Like, I got my first gun a couple of months ago. I'm like, you know, I need to know how to protect myself and my child. You just never know. People come out bad. And then when I did finally tell my mom, like, little things, she was like, yeah, because I saw this story on Netflix of the girl, he killed the lady and the 2 babies. Yeah. She's like, yes, get a restraining order, do whatever you got to do to protect your child. So, you know, that brings through my mind, like, it could go, but you just never know. Somebody could be in love with you one day, and the next day they murdered you and your baby. You know? So, people, I mean, hey, the world we live in is so crazy, and you just never know what a person is going through or what their thought processes are. And you know, like the little young girl that just got killed out in, I want to say Houston or something, where she wanted out of the marriage and he killed her. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and he killed himself, and they left 3 babies here because she wanted out of the marriage. Like, you have to, we don't always know, because you know, you just don't know what that person, what demons they're battling with. But it's so fucking scary, because you don't know. You just never know what a person's intentions are with you. And to be vulnerable and let your guard down, like you said, like in dating and stuff, after that situation, I can only imagine how hard it, you know, it is. For 4 years. 4 years. Not able to trust. dating somebody, and it's been 8 months, and I'm just now to the point where I'm letting anybody even know about this person, and to the point where I'm even starting to share little things with him, only for his safety, of course, because I don't know, we might be driving somewhere, he hop out, I don't know, but I need you to know this. Right. But he's such a great guy, and like, it's just definitely something different about him, but I'm always like, what are you doing this? What's, you know, my mind is always running, and he's just like, chill out. Can you just relax, understand that everybody is not your baby daddy? I'm like, I know, but it's definitely, it's almost like PTSD, like when you go through war or something like that. Like you always, your mind is always thinking about that. Like even my daughter, trusting her going places and being with certain people. I think about just protecting her, because I don't want her to have to be hurt by anybody, and she's only 5. You know, I'm thinking about that now. So it's just, it's something that you don't want, or if you don't have to go through it, well, nobody should have to go through it, but it's something that you don't need to take yourself through. It's just so unnecessary. I don't think it's ever a reason that you have to stay. It ain't no love, no matter kids, whatever, no sex, no nothing, no stability that's worth risking your life over. Like just leave. And I have a sister where, like, we joke about it right here, right now, today, but like her and her guy, they would do shit to each other. Like she stabbed this man in the face with some scissors, and then I think she drove him to the hospital. He didn't tell him who did it, but like, and then they was together that same night. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on now. And that's another reason why I didn't used to tell people, because my mom used to always be like, don't tell me what's going on, because then the next day you gonna be right back with that person, and your whole family gonna be mad at them, and you gonna be in love. So I was one of those people who used to hide a lot that I was going through in relationships because of that. I didn't want anybody else to think this way about him, although that is really how he is, you know. In a way, we still want to protect these people, or protect these individuals, and you know, not let people see the real them. But you know, now that I look back on it, I'm like, I don't even really care what people think at this point, you know, because I'm totally over it. Yeah, over you're in him. A different space. I'm you got out of this shit, and you were brave enough to walk away from the situation, because a lot of women aren't. A lot of women are still in those situations, enduring those situations with these men that aren't even worthy of them. And I look at situations like that, and I just like, you know, all you can do is pray and send good energy, good vibes their way, and pray that they get out of the situation and don't end up, you know, where it doesn't end up in somebody, you know, being truly hurt or dead or something like that. And it's like, my mom, she would always tell us, like, regardless of what he does to me, I still want you guys to love your dad. And like, that's the kind of heart she had. And she, you know, regardless of the situation, she never talked down on him. Like, we saw it all, but she still, that's still your daddy. Like, I remember saying, like, I hate him, and she, no, you don't hate him, that's still your daddy, you still should love him. And I took that with me, you know, into adulthood, and that's how I'm able to truly say I don't harbor that hate. I don't harbor hate or anger towards my dad, because, you know, I don't know what, like my sister, my youngest sister, like I said, when we had these conversations, she'll be like, well, we don't know what mama was doing to deserve it. And it's like, regardless, nobody deserves that. And you didn't see the things that I saw with my young eyes. Like, you know what I'm saying? So no one deserves it. And regardless of what she was doing, like, I think it was more so he was dealing with substance abuse, alcohol abuse, and would come in and, you know, just pop off. Like, if the house wasn't picked up, or the food wasn't cooked right, like little stuff like that. And it's like, you gonna hit me because something a little burnt? Be grateful that I cooked this damn meal for you. You know what I'm saying? But I wasn't adult then. I wasn't an adult then, so I don't know what was going on behind those closed doors with my mom and my dad. You know what I'm saying? So I can't, and my mom's not here, I don't have those conversations with my dad. You know what I'm saying? I know when my mom passed, my dad was fucked up about it. He was so fucked up about it. And even one day said, like, you know, I should have treated her better.
she probably would still be here. Like my mom, she had cancer and all these other things, but at the end of the day, my mom truly died of a broken fucking heart. She loved my dad to no end. Like, loved that man dirty draws, and she endured year after year after year after year for him.
Wow.
And, you know, in the end, she lost. Yeah, so, you know, like, that's my experience with it. But go ahead, I'm going to give you the floor again and let you, you know, say whatever you want to say.
I guess now I'm more comfortable talking about it because it is something that I feel more people should talk about. A lot of people do hide it, like I did for 4 or 5 years. And I think if you do talk about it, if you do realize that this is actually what I'm in, because it did take a while for me to be like, dang, I'm straight up in an abusive relationship. It's easier for you to walk away. I think the more you do tell somebody, even if it's not a family member, your mother or somebody close, a friend, I think you should get one person to discuss and talk and verbalize it. Because I think once you start verbalizing it, a lot of stuff you start to make sense of things, and a lot of stuff you start to I guess kind of it comes to a reality where you come face to face with it. When somebody else is kind of able to see the story and maybe give you some interjection, or even if they're just there to listen. I think once I actually started to verbalize it was when I was kind of ready and better to move on. And you know, get myself together. So I'm really glad that I did this with you today.
Thank you so much.
Because I feel a lot better.
Just being able to open up and talk about it, and not just in this safe space, but just overall. Period. Like, let's cheers to getting out of the situation, y'all. For leaving, for having the courage to leave, for real. That's what's up. I absolutely, with my whole heart, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience. Y'all know that not everybody's going to be open and transparent and willing to have those discussions and put their story out there to the rest of the world, because fear of judgment. You know, we fear being judged. We fear, you know, being looked at as weak. You know, and like, I absolutely, if I were to ever be in that situation, I probably would not tell a single soul, because I would, you know,
think people
fear, like, girl, look at me like, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe that's why I destroyed the relationship before it even get to that point, because just out of fear of, you know, having to get to a certain point. Like, I self-sabotage. I've told y'all that. Like, I definitely am the queen of self-sabotaging shit, just out of fear. Fear and just, you know, my therapist told me that it's because I don't think I deserve the good shit. And she's like, you just don't feel like you deserve the good shit until you reach that space where you feel like you deserve the good that the world has to offer. You're still going to continue to get the bad. And that's where I'm at. That's the space I'm in, where I'm ready to bring in the good stuff. All the bad, like, I don't want nothing negative. No drama, no nothing.
That is so mean. And I'm glad you brought up therapy, because I did end up going to therapy even before me and him broke up. I think my baby was like 9 months. Packed all his stuff and just left. I'm like, where is he at? Where is he went? He ain't saying nothing to nobody. This nigga had got a whole apartment. I kind of I found that on Facebook. This man had an apartment, okay? So so I'm like devastated. So I did take the moment to go to counseling, and I think that helps tremendously. Not saying that, like I said, I did go to church, tried to get my spirit going. But I think therapy, that's definitely, a lot of African Americans do not believe in.
We shy away from therapy in the African American community. We absolutely do. It is.
And I believe that helps. So even, like I said, if you don't have a friend, a therapist is definitely that person who's going to sit and talk. And sometimes she would just sit and not say nothing. And I'm like, okay, she just
listening.
Like, what's going on? But I realized even after I went home, I'm like, dang, I really needed that. I just needed somebody to just sit and listen, because I held it in. Like, I couldn't talk to my mom about it. I couldn't talk to sisters. Like, nobody. I straight was just harboring every incident and just holding everything in. So I just felt so good that somebody listen, you know,
and to get that unbiased feedback from the therapist that you know, they don't know the other party, and their job is not to judge you. Their job is to help you get better and help you figure it out. And like with my therapist, she doesn't. I typically come to my own conclusion, because you probably can attest to this, where we know what the fuck we supposed to be doing. We know what we be doing. We just be needing that confirmation, or we need that, you know, that extra set of eyes and ears that's going to say you're right. Because usually I'll be in conversation and tell her what's going on, and I'll be like, this is what I should do. Because that's the space that I've been going to her for so long. Like, I've kind of cut back a little bit, but I have been going to her for so long where I know how she operates. She's not going to tell me what to do. It's not her job to tell me what to do, because she told me you gonna do what you want to do regardless. So why even bother telling you what to do, right? She lets me come to my own conclusion, and I usually tell her, well, this is what I should do. And that's I've gotten so good with it, where I'm like, this is the situation, and this is what I know I should do with the situation. And she's like, well, do that, and I go with it and I do it. But yeah, so that's my experience with domestic violence. Tamia has shared her experience with domestic violence. I absolutely appreciate you with my whole heart for coming on and sharing in your experience. We gonna shut it down right here. Thank you guys for tuning in to Pure Fuckery, the podcast. This is my homegirl Tamia.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We're here celebrating National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I hope you guys have the courage to move on. If you are in a relationship that is not serving your highest purpose, have the courage to walk away, move on, and go. Because I promise you, when one door closes, another one's going to open, and nothing's going to be taken away without that upgrade coming through, y'all. So I'm going to leave y'all with that tidbit. Thank you guys for tuning in. Drop those comments in the comment section. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed. Y'all know where to find me on social media. I am on Twitter as SoMo, Instagram Soul, SOO, Sophisticated One, and Pure_Fuckery. You can follow me on Facebook as Monique Ross. To me, if you want to drop your tags, if you want, you don't have to.
My tags is Tamiel Banks. I'm just Tamiel Banks on Facebook, and I am also, I have a just quickly, I have a I can't even think of a nonprofit.
Okay, nonprofit.
And I am beginning that. There's something that I'm working on for. It's called the Viola Boyd Center of Visual and Performing Arts. So you can search that on Facebook and Instagram, and that's pretty much what I'm into these days. So thanks, guys.
Look for the Viola Boyd. What was it? Viola Boyd
Center of Visual and Performing Arts.
Check her out, y'all. She has a GoFundMe page if you guys want to donate to the cause. We absolutely appreciate you all. I'll check you all in the next episode. It's your favorite Dr. Bae, Monique Ross. Peace.